Hello and welcome to Confessions of a Recruiter. This episode hosted by Sam Hope and Jory Humphreys. And in this episode, we're going to be looking forward, specifically at what it takes to grow and scale a recruitment agency in 2026 with a very, very special guest today. One of the most respected voices in our industry, an advisor, author, commentator, Greg Savage. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you very much for that very, very flattering introduction. I love the way you read it. It's exactly the way I wrote it for you.
Great to have you here, Greg. Mate, you've seen multiple recruitment cycles over your decades here. What feels fundamentally different about growing an agency in 2026 compared to, say, 10 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's totally different. You mentioned I've been in recruitment a long time, and it has been a long time. I'm in my fifth decade. So I've seen lots of cycles, and I've seen the whole evolution of tech, because there was no tech in recruitment when I started. And all of those things, you can name them: the internet, social media, job boards, LinkedIn. They all were predicted to destroy recruitment or change it. And they did change it, didn't destroy it. We've done wonderfully through all those years. But I think I would sum it up by saying that right now, but no exaggeration, I think it's the time of the biggest threat I've ever seen to our industry. And the flip side of the same coin, it's the time of the biggest opportunity. And what I'm driving at there is, I think it's not only the technology, but it's customer expectations, it's cost of running a business. It's a fundamental shift.
At what point do you think an agency owner should start to think about scaling?
Before they start their business. 80% of recruitment companies in Australia and the world have less than 10 staff. They are micro businesses. They are lifestyle businesses. In most cases, they're dominated with permanent placement, which means they have no value to sell. They might be producing good income for the owner, and that's wonderful. But why I said before is I think that somebody who's starting a recruitment company, there's a lot of excitement around that. Sometimes it's done because it's a knee-jerk. You've lost your job, so you go out on your own or whatever. Somebody approaches you, you start your business. What you really should do is to think about what is your goal out of this thing. And there's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business. If you have 5 of you in a room, each billing $500,000, everyone's going to make a good living, and the owner could take $1 million a year out of the business. But you will have nothing to sell. No one's going to pay you for it. On the other hand, if you scale a business successfully, you might have an asset that someone will pay you significant money for. More likely, though, you'll scale it unsuccessfully, which means it'll get bigger and less profitable, in which case you'll stop getting the big income and you'll have nothing to sell. So you need to really plan, what do I like? Do I have the skills to run a business? Do I have the appetite for risk? Do I have the cash? Or am I happy to work on my own, work with 1 or 2 other like-minded people, have a lot of flexibility in my life, earn a good living, but realize that when the day comes for me to close the door, I will lock the key and walk away. There'll be nothing there. So you should. It doesn't mean to say you can't change your mind, but I think a lot of people scale their business or try to scale it because they just think they should, and I encourage them to work out whether they want to.
For sure. Jory and I are quite well immersed into ex-recruiter community. So we see a lot of, exceptional recruiters come out and start their own businesses. And I find over time, Jory, you might as well, that people's views change of their agency. You know, so a lot of the time people will sort of come out expecting and wanting to sort of be a solo operator and grow the business on their own. And, you know, generally I find within sort of about 6 months or so, when they've started making some good billings and, looking to the future and having some planning sessions and whatnot, their views and opinions change. And that's when they sort of, start to look at scaling or potentially hiring their first onshore or offshore recruiter to assist them. What are 3 key things an agency owner should do before they even think or consider about scaling or hiring?
It follows on from what you just said. They should think about what their goal is. If you take your example you gave of someone that was 6 months or a year and then they think they should scale, sometimes that's driven by boredom or loneliness, and that may not be the best reason. Sometimes it's driven by envy is the wrong word, but watching other people that have done things and they think maybe they should be there. You've really got to, I think, do a frank assessment of what your skills are and what your appetite is to take on the journey. Because it is not easy and the failure rate is extremely high. Are you prepared to change your role? A lot of people don't realize as they grow their business, they will have to stop doing things that currently they love. But you're not going to grow a business if you're going to be on the tools every day. You're going to have to do other things. Do you have the ability to manage people? Are you a leader? Are you prepared to sacrifice personal income in the short term, which is usually what happens, for the longer term goal? And sometimes you sacrifice the income and you still don't get the longer term. I answer your question. A lot of thought, a lot of planning, a lot of soul searching, a lot of talking to trusted advisors and informally, I mean, and just work out whether the dream of running a big business is the same as, or you understand the journey.
What's the biggest mistake, I guess, or biggest mistake recruitment founders make when trying to scale? And I guess we've had a bit of an experience that ourselves as well, haven't we? But from your side, Greg, what would you say the biggest mistake would be?
Well, when you asked that question, I was thinking, why don't you guys just tell me your story?
We do have some stories. Like we've grown and scaled quite quickly. We've moved into state as well, and
Yeah, I suppose the interstate thing is like probably not researching the market like thoroughly enough and thinking you can sort of replicate what you've done in one city and duplicate it in the next. And turns out it's not as easy as copy and paste.
No, it's not. And I was giving you guys a bit of curry, but I wrote a book basically on the mistakes I've made in trying to scale businesses, which I did learn from and got a few things right eventually. But I think one of the biggest mistakes is hubris and ego and dream over reality. And you need a plan. You need a very clear plan, preferably with advice from somebody who's done it, because a lot of owners say, "I'm going to scale," and then they just hire 2 people and throw them at the mix. Hope it all works out, and it's not going to. The other thing is falling back on old habits. You actually have to actively say, I'm no longer going to chase that business. I'm going to flick it over to recruiter number 1, and I'm going to coach recruiter number 2 because she'll never make it without my input. Whatever, I'm making it up, but there needs to be allocation of resources. Other mistakes I see is we're scaling, we're growing. Every business is good business. Let's have a go at that. Yes, we're an accounting specialist, but you can take that marketing job and have a go at that hospitality job. And that's a mistake. It's a distraction. There's no synergy. There's no leverage. The candidates are not serviced properly, etc. So not sticking to a niche is usually a mistake. And then not getting the structure as you grow. Usually they're like, well, we're a small business. It's all hands to the deck. And there is an element of that. But I think you need people very focused. So, for example, if you're going to grow, what most people do is they say, well, let's do a bit of temp and perm. And let's just do that. I don't think that's smart. You can do temp and perm, but you need dedicated people to focus on dedicated areas, accountable to grow those areas. And of course, not having enough cash to support your dreams of growth.
Yeah, and that's part of the next point was what's the role of cash flow versus revenue when you're deciding to scale and build your team?
Well, revenue in itself is good. It's increased revenue, but revenue doesn't equate, as you well know, to gross profit or net fee income. And neither of those things tell us whether the gross profit exceeds the expenses. So chasing revenue at low margins and chasing revenue and increasing your cost base too fast will result in very painful outcomes, obviously, and it's extremely common. It's extremely common. I've sat around tables with people and we've doubled our revenue this year, and I'm like, yeah, but we don't make any money and we're in debt. But Greg, we've doubled our revenue. Well, you're paying too much to generate that revenue, and that is not sustainable. Kind of obvious academically, but it happens all the time.
I guess when we started H People and started scaling, we relied on, I guess, metrics, didn't we, from when it was time to hire internally or start a new desk or division, and that was mainly based around GP into the business. So we pretty much banked on $40,000 periods. So once we hit $40,000, $80,000 between us, that gave us enough cash to break out into a new area, which supported us quite well, I guess. as the business has evolved, we've got some amazing business mentors.
And I suppose that probably leads into what would be your opinion? Are there any particular metrics or KPIs you think that are important for founders when they're looking at scaling to be successful?
Yeah, there are. And by the way, if someone would like to go to my website under free resources, there's a drop down of ebooks, and one of them is metrics and KPIs. They're free, so grab that. But for this, I mean, pure revenue growth is a nice blunt metric. At least it's better than revenue decline. So we'd look at that. But gross profit per staff member on a monthly basis is a beautiful metric, because we might be able to say in a board meeting, look, our gross profit is increasing every month. And then someone like me will come along and say, but you've doubled your staff and your gross profit per person's going down. And that is not good. Management and staff costs as a percentage of total GP is also a very, very powerful and important metric to manage. So you take all your staff costs of everyone in the business as a percentage of total GP. When that gets anywhere above 60, it's not percent. It's not great. If you're really trying to grow a business that you want to sell, then you have a value of equity. Then you're going to want to grow your temp business. And so measuring temp GP as a percentage of permanent GP. We love permanent GP. It's very, very profitable. It's beautiful. It's very unfaithful though, as you'll know. And if you can grow your temp GP, it will smoothen out the rough declines, but it will also make you more profitable, but also make you more valuable. So in terms of a buyer. So I would look at that. The other thing that is worth looking at is debtor days. I mean, it's very unsexy, but the amount of time I've seen a beautiful looking P&L, they look at the balance sheet, there's no money because we don't collect our debts. And we charge, the worst sort of scenario is we charge our clients low fees, low margins on temp. We give them massive guarantee periods like a year, and we also allow them to pay within 6 months. Well, good night, nurse. So debtors days. And then another beautiful one, mostly ugly when you look at it, but beautiful in its concept, is expenditure per staff member. Because as you add staff, your expenditures is going to go up, but your expenditure per staff member should go up because you should be getting leverage. So those are 4 or 5 that I like. But as I said, I've got that ebook. It's got everything spelled out because there was a lot of words what I've just spoken. I know it was quite hard for people to take that all in. So get the ebook off my website.
Perfect. Leading to a bit of the next section in regards to productivity. Where do you think, or where do you see recruiters wasting most of their time inside their business? Obviously, billings is a big thing, but what's holding their billings back typically, do you believe?
Well, I visited your company today, and I'd say mostly visiting the pub on the corner is the biggest danger there. But
it sees a workout on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Look, there's a lot of things. Not utilizing the database, not having access to candidates in the database, not having an up-to-date database, a database which we're proud of and tell everyone we've got 300,000 candidates on it, and yet it's actually a candidate graveyard because we don't know who's active and we don't know who's alive, and in some cases we literally don't know whether they're alive. And so we run ads. And we run ads which cost a lot, and it generates a lot of candidates, most of whom are inappropriate. And we screen and we sort, and that is a tremendously inappropriate use of time. I'm not saying you shouldn't run ads. Searching for LinkedIn leads and then getting distracted by the birthday celebration articles and just going down that rabbit warren is a waste of time. Screening candidates via phone calls when they shouldn't even have made it because the candidates are putting in very beautifully presented applications that are AI enhanced and are not entirely true. Let's not beat around the bush. People are lying on their applications and it's slowing recruiters down. And importantly, working on unqualified briefs from clients who are not even sincere about hiring, or we've given the job to 6 recruiters and have their internal team working on it and are advertising themselves. And then Johnny Recruiter is spending 3 weeks trying to fill that job, and there was only 1 chance out of 100 he ever was. And so that's a lot of things, isn't it?
Big time.
Definitely.
What if, with a click of a finger, you could start your own recruitment agency? Well, now you can. With XRecruiter, launching your own agency has never been easier. In less than 3 weeks, you could be taking home 85% more of your billings with everything handled for you. You recruit, we take care of the rest. Click the link in the description to see if you are ready to take that next step.
Something that I'm quite interested to get your perspective as well, given the case that we're scaling a little bit. But in your experience, what activities should the founder not be doing once the agency reaches a certain size?
It depends on the plan. But I again, we mentioned this earlier today, but it's be helpful for the audience. I think recruitment companies, when they get over 10 people, between 10 and 15, they hit what I call the valley of death. And the valley of death is where recruitment company growth comes to die. And it's because the recruitment company owners hang on to their old jobs. Now, when you've got under 10 people, and they say 2 owners like you guys, you can manage those 10 people directly. You don't need a second tier. You can also do your own billings, and if you've got overseas professionals like you do, and which adds a different dimension, then you can scale to a degree. But once you start to get to hiring 12, 13, 14, 15 people, you cannot put your arms around that. And so when that does happen, sometimes you get a false dawn and the company grows to 20, but I promise you, 6 months later, it's back to 8 because it all imploded. The leaders have to consciously work out their strengths. Say there's 2 of you. One of you might be a good people leader. The other might be a great sales champion, for example. Play to those strengths and build a second tier of management. You cannot scale a business without a second tier of billing managers. And billing is the operative word, as well as the managing. And the managing is more coaching. So they can help their 4 or 5 people reporting to them to the highest degree of productivity, but at the same time, they are billing and paying their way. The other mistake people make is they have non-billing managers in a small company. You shouldn't have them in any company, really, but certainly a small company. It's not going to work. It just doesn't add up.
So the magic number's sort of between that 5 and 10, where you'd put in another level of management between the agency owner, and the consultants.
Yeah, I don't know where I got this from, just experience, I suppose. I think a good billing manager can manage 8 people, but then that billing manager is not actually transacting a lot. Yeah. They are sales, and they might be account managing. So they are doing sales, account managing, and they should make the odd placement just to show that they've still do it, and they're chipping in, 20 grand a month that sort of helps pay their salary, but they're getting massive leverage through the other rate. The other rate are billing exponentially more. If someone's a billing manager who's managing 1 person, then they've got to bill almost full time.
8's the magic number. Any more than that, it gets a bit loose.
You're just juggling too much. You're not giving them what they want and what they need to thrive. You'll have staff turnover. You'll have service delivery issues. You'll have it's not a good place to be.
Now we're talking about billings. Now, what's the quickest way you believe of increasing your billings without hiring more recruiters?
That's where you're going to look at your metric at GP per recruiter. And okay, this is a generalization, but I bet you 90% of the people listening to this are going to nod their heads in agreement. If you've got 6 recruiters in a recruitment company, you're going to have 2 big billers, probably 1 or 2. They'll bill much more than anyone else. You're going to have 2 underperformers or people on the way up learning, and you're going to have 2 mediocre people. And so the big billers are carrying that team. So instead of what people then do, say we want to grow, we're going to hire another person who typically ends up on the mediocre side of the scale or not. And so it reduces our productivity per recruiter. More important to focus on individuals. Of the 2 that are underperforming, go hardcore, 90-day plan, help them to go from underperforming to at least average. Yeah. And with the average ones, try and get them up into the above average. And that means I'm not talking about bullying or anything silly like that. I'm talking about training, support, advice, accountability, and helping them get to the next level. Now, if you get an extra small number, $5,000 a month from 6 recruiters, that's $30,000 a month, which is $500,000. And a third of that goes to the recruiter, and the rest goes to profit. That's $400,000 extra profit I just gave you by giving you that tip. You can put my commission on the corner. So that would be the one thing to do. I was telling your guys this morning about the secret formula, which would apply in this case: activity, quality of that activity, and activity with the right people. You've got to have the whole business focused on it. Let me just talk about KPIs for a minute. KPIs are a dirty word in recruitment, and they're a dirty word not because measurement is bad. It's how KPIs are implemented by mediocre managers that's given it a bad name because somebody's come in and said, make 100 calls. Or somebody's come in and said, send 50 resumes. Quality activity with the right people is what's going to drive the productivity. And you've got to help people, and you do have to measure. You can't okay, you two guys, you're billing 300 a year. I'll change that. I have another look at you. You're billing
a million.
You're billing 200 a year for my example. Stay calm. And you're billing 500. You're both good guys. You both work hard, but you're billing 200. What am I going to say to you? This is what most recruiters...
Make more calls.
Yeah, make more calls. Do more stuff. Come on, Sam. Do better. That's like telling a soccer goal scorer to score more goals. He's trying.
He's trying.
Doesn't need you. You've got to give practical advice. These are the action steps. The other thing is harking back to what I said to the previous answer. Better qualified job orders, teaching your recruiters how to qualify a job order. I mean, when a client gives a recruiter a job order, that's actually a wish list. It's a dream. And no one has ever placed anyone who fitted a job description 100%. So we know that. So we should work with the client through pushback, consulting, advice to say, does it really need to have, do you really need a double degree from Sydney University and a diploma in Mongolian throat singing for this accounting job? Do we really? No, we probably don't. So let's drop a few things. Do they really, 80,000, and you tell stories, 80,000, I've placed several people, true, all true. Yeah. Advice. You then shape the job description, make it fillable, which is in your interest. I don't deny that, but it's also in the interest of the client and the candidate who gets the job. So those are just some of the things. Some of those things I've mentioned are as old school as recruitment itself, but just because things are old school doesn't make them wrong.
For sure. So back to basics, constant training.
Clarity about what a productive day looks like, support through the downtime, and also making sure that your processes support your recruiters. So that means that you have an ATS that works, that we stick to it. By that I mean we implement and input the right data. Maybe an offshore professional to support a recruiter or a team of recruiters so that they're not getting sucked into the admin would be smart. You've got to work that out. That's what you guys at Wingman do. So that's I completely support both tech and offshore professionals to support recruiters to do high-value work that only recruiters can do. That last two sentences was the most important part of what I've said today, and all of it was genius.
Very much so, very much so. Next segment's on profitability and healthy business practices. A lot of agencies grow their revenue but struggle with margins. What's the biggest profit leaks that you've seen in recruitment businesses historically?
Well, there's several, so we'll dive into them. The biggest one is chasing revenue over margin. So I've sat around board tables, and I've also made this mistake myself several times. So I'm sort of speaking a little bit as though everyone else is stupid and I'm clever. I'm the stupidest because I've done them all multiple times, but I got to the point where I can now recognize them. So a conversation like, so we've been offered this opportunity for a preferred supplier agreement with ABC Limited. It's $1 million a year in revenue. We've got to take it. And then someone like me might say, what's the actual gross profit that's going to come from it? That's 180,000. And how many people? We'll have to have 2 people working full time on it. So just do the maths.
As I say, you got 70K wages and you got no profit in the business. Yeah.
But it's $1 million, Greg. We're going to go from 67 million. You're fucking going backwards. So I think that's a huge denuder of profit in a business. The wrong compensation plans. Oh, by the way, you can go again to my website under free resources. There is an ebook on compensation plans, and there is no such thing as a perfect compensation plan, but there are some that are disastrously wrong, and they include those that give commission to consultants too early, and by that I mean they haven't really even covered their basic costs, and it's a see monkey feed monkey thing. It's like, oh, you made your first placement, here's 5%. No, you're on 80 grand or 100 grand. You've got to cover that, and then we'll give you a bigger share. And you should reward people who have performed well generously. So if somebody's covered their salary 3 times, One's for the salary, one's for the cost of the seat, in other words, the on cost, and one is a return to the business. Above that, you can be generous. You can give them 40% because they already made a profit. But don't give them 20% of every dollar, as an example.
No, they've got to cover their seat.
They've got to cover it. So the other thing is that so you've got compensation plans that this is to cut into your profits, chasing margin, chasing revenue over profitable business, and your back office costs rising more quickly. So we've got 5 good billers, 6, but we've also added a marketing person and an accountant, and we're spending a lot more on marketing, and we're doing all these things. They all sound good, but we've got to cut our coats according to our cloth. So we can't, if we're not seeing the revenue climb. Now you might take a strategic punt where you say, I'm investing, and it'll drop through. A couple more I can mention to you. Non-billing managers, I still see that. It's not as common as it was. Now, look, if you're running a business under 25 people, I don't see why that's ever necessary. Everyone should be involved in sales at some point. Yeah. I mean, in my last job, actually running a recruitment company, which was Firebrand, I did, I think, 65 client visits. I was the CEO. It was a company with offices all over the world. But that's only 2 a week. It's not even 2 a week, is it? It's like 1 a week. So a couple of hours. Yeah. But the benefits were, Greg says we've all got to sell, but he's doing it. I was going out with consultants. You don't get credibility just because you're title's CEO. You've got to show that you're in the trenches. And there's a lot of, I mean, I believe in marketing, but I don't believe in marketing that is just brand marketing. We're not Nike. We don't, like a classical conversation. So your marketing needs to create, a document that allows a consultant to go on a meeting. That's valuable marketing. But just saying it increases our brand, please. Don't fool yourself.
What defines a healthy recruitment desk? I guess looking at both temp and perm, in your opinion.
Are you asking whether I should do temp and perm on the same desk?
Maybe within the business, I'll rephrase that. A healthy recruitment business, and should it include both temp and perm, in your opinion?
Well, yes, it should, in my opinion, include both temp and perm, and I'll justify that. But even though you didn't ask the question because you saw the look in my eye and you were scared, you big baby Generation Z marshmallow. Don't make one recruiter do temp and perm. They're different jobs. They need focus. And if you've got someone who's a perm recruiter and you get them to do temp, they'll be distracted and they'll gravitate back to perm because perm is juicy. It's huge rewards. So you're never going to build a temp side. You've got to have, if someone's doing temp in your business, and there should be, then that person's got to wake up every morning dreaming temp and focused on it. There can be very rare occasions where you might have an overlap, but I won't even go down there. It's not unique, a situation. So what we need is to help a healthy recruitment desk, or to define it. The first thing is that the quality of the job orders is high. They're exclusive. They are well qualified. The client is acting as a partner with that recruiter. That is the first sign of a healthy recruitment desk. It won't be healthy. It might bill sporadically quite a lot, but it's not healthy if it's transactional, because if the person's away for 4 weeks, it collapses. That's the end of that, let alone if they leave. It's a desk that has a high history of repeat business, and not only repeat business, but preferably where we've got the accounting desk, but also the marketing desk, the perm desk, the temp desk. We've got multiple points of contact. Would make it healthy. The quality of the client itself, and by that I mean the behavior of the hiring manager or the talent acquisition person, which is more collaborative, partnership, returns your calls, gives you feedback, doesn't cut across your lines, like call the candidate directly, responds to your advice. I mean, it's their company, they make their decisions, but you don't go to a doctor and then tell the doctor what to prescribe. You don't go to an accountant and then tell the accountant what to do on your tax return. You don't go to the lawyer and tell them what to put in the contract. If you trust them, you take their advice. That's a healthy recruitment desk. There's a good repeat supply and flow of candidates. The desk, the recruiter running the desk has a lot of warm candidates, and by that I mean they're not actively looking, but they are available to be seduced. You wouldn't be able to measure it, but where the client thinks of the recruiter by name. They think, I'm going to call Sam. I'm going to call those guys over at H People. I'm going to call Sam. He's my man.
That's it. More of a partnership rather than a transaction, repeat business.
Those are all signs. They don't protect you completely, but usually they can withstand a few screw-ups, they can withstand a downturn, and when it picks up, a desk like that can just fly.
Might change gears a little bit, and we've obviously brought up Wingman a couple of times throughout the conversation. And next segment's a little bit about the modern leverage and what a company like Wingman could offer. Recently, you've partnered with the Wingman team, which is very exciting. But what problem do you see them solving that recruitment agencies may have struggled with for years?
Okay, well, I'll answer that question by just addressing, I think at the beginning of this webinar or this podcast, I said, it's time of greatest risk and a time of great opportunity. And as I said then, that is not just attention grabbing. I believe that to be the case. And one of the risks is, and the opportunities, depending on how you respond, is for recruitment company owners to understand that we have to evolve the way the work within the recruitment gets done. What do I mean by that? Well, there's three main parameters. One is big chunks of the job will and need to be automated. So stuff that's transactional, that's hack work, that's repetitive, that we spoke earlier about that recruiters hate doing and absorbs their time, screening, shortlisting, reference checking maybe, quite a lot of that sort of work, logistics, some outreach, etc. That can be automated, and we should. A big part of a recruitment company owner's job right now is to work out what it is for him or her, and what tech will do that seamlessly without destroying the other processes in the business. We're not talking about AI today, so that's another whole story. But you're going to so a lot of work will be automated. The second thing is a lot of work will become more human than ever before. The days of recruiters hiding behind digital, spamming resumes around town and making a lot of money are fast becoming redundant or over. I think the recruiter's job will evolve to a much more consultative one. I think they'll need to be a trusted advisor. I think they'll need to be a confidant. I think they'll need to really partner with their clients. And so work is going to, yes, we're automating that, but this is actually getting more face-to-face. And then the third part is a lot of the work that recruiters do can be heavily automated, but also still requires a human touch. But it doesn't require the human touch of someone being paid $150,000 a year who is a deeply skilled consultant. That person shouldn't, in the new world of work, be drawn into hours of screening irrelevant people, updating the ATS, etc. That's where I believe what Wingman does offers magnificent help. And I think, let me be perfectly honest. Offshoring is not new. In fact, it's been around decades. It may have a slightly sullied name in some people's minds. They're not even sure why. Maybe they think it's second standard work being done. I think what needs to be understood is, and this is what Wingman does offer, is that you can get high quality people who actually in some cases will do the work better than your staff because that's their main job. And that complementary nature of those three components, I think is what an owner of a recruitment company should be planning right now. Most of them are not doing anything like what I've just described.
That's it. It was a pleasure to have you in the H People office earlier and introduce you to our team, and got to spend a little bit of time with Kaz as well, one of our offshore remote professionals, and hear a little bit about, I guess, how she supports Kurt and how we turn Kurt's 50 hours a week that he works into 90 hours a week to really free him up to grow.
Well, I mean, I don't want this to sound like an advertorial because it's not, and I don't say anything I don't believe, but I really enjoyed meeting your people today because you heard me ask them, has this made you more productive? And tell me how. And it definitely has. And they are enthusiastic about it. And I think that's the other thing. I think you should do what I've described, and that is have offshore or remote professionals supporting your recruiters. But you've got to get the recruiters on board because it won't work unless the recruiters engage and one-on-one makes three. That's the beauty of it. One-on-one makes three. The oil guys told me that they bill more than they possibly could on their own, and it certainly bills more than the salary of the offshore professional. So we are miles ahead. Everybody's ahead.
What's the mindset shift that founders, recruitment agency owners, senior leaders need to get to really trust a remote professional inside their business?
Well, the first thing is that owners of recruitment companies are similar to most human beings, is that they're very slow to accept change. And they're comfortable with what they've done before. And that's their biggest Achilles heel, to be honest. The one thing you cannot do in this market is nothing. That's what I'd say to you. Doing nothing will put you into the category of those recruiters who are going to be phased out, because it's not, a lot of the values and a lot of the skills of the past will still be relevant, don't get me wrong. In fact, some of them will come back into vogue. And some of the older school recruiters will love the fact that it's going to be more consulted. So I think there's a feeling that, as I touched on before, the work's inferior. It's something you add on if you're not serious about that part of your business. It's low value work only. These things are not universally true about offshoring. Also, you can't trust the person over there to do good work. I can't even trust my local recruiters when they're at home because I think they're at the beach. So how am I going to trust a guy in Manila? But indeed, the people are hired for their trustworthiness, but also they're trained. Also, they're online, and you can measure their activities exactly the same as you can as a locally based recruiter. I think if you've ever had an experience of offshoring and it didn't go well, one of the things that often was the case is that the people weren't fully trained. They were just tacked on and like, good luck. Well, even if you do that with a local recruiter, they are very likely not to work out. So you've got to put the effort in if you want the return.
It sounds like in 2026, as more technology comes, it's what can you do to get that competitive advantage against your competition?
Absolutely. And solving this puzzle, I'm not sure if that's the right word, of what work should be done by broadly speaking, the tech, the local highly skilled consultant, or the offshore professional who is also highly skilled but just handles that sort of work which is within their capability. And some of it's very capable. I mean, we've got, as I was telling the story, this wasn't even Wingman, it's another organization. My client there was getting all his nurse temp jobs filled by offshore people, and his actual fill rate and efficiency and candidate and client satisfaction went up by offshoring it. He still had onshore people, but he hasn't hired any extra of those since then. Because there's a massive arbitrage on the salaries as well. And let's not hide away from that. It is a cost saving, but it's not the reason I do it. It is actually making your highly expensive, highly valued onshore recruiters more productive.
Allows your consultants to provide a better service to their clients because they get to spend more time with them, and the candidates also get a better experience because there's more time in the day to spend with both parties. Next section, future of recruitment and advice to agency owners. How do you see AI, automation, and offshore talent reshaping recruitment agencies over the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Well, I kind of answered that in my description of how work will be done, but I will give you my flat-out prediction for how our industry is going to reshape. And it is a prediction. And I think executive search will thrive. Those big global firms, their revenues are well up on previous years. They are thriving. And that, of course, is in a domain which it's a partnership, it's nuanced, it's networking, it's bespoke, it's consultative, it's at a senior level. And technology still will play into that, but that's thriving. I think temp and contract will thrive. I think it will be affected by technology and lower level or more shift work type temp will be increasingly automated. But I think we're heading towards a world of increasingly gig economy. I think your children, and I know we talked about having kids, will actually maybe have several jobs at once. I think that's the sort of world we're moving to. The career that we have all grown up with may not be. It may be that I've got several jobs. But anyway, I think it'll be a gig economy. So I think matching people and skills to the available jobs and vice versa will grow. So I think temp will grow. But I think multi-listed, contingent, non-exclusive, non-retained perm placements will decline, because it's based on speed of a client giving a job to 4 agencies and basically saying, doggies, here's a bone. On the beach, doggies, run.
And everyone goes and does the same
thing. And they all
thing.
run, and then one of them gets the bone.
Yeah.
The other 3
it's just
go
a
over there.
race, isn't it? To race to submit.
It's a race, and it's not in anyone's interest.
No.
Right? The recruiters fill 1 job out of 4, which means they only get paid for 25% of what they do. The client is actually getting their critical hire based on speed instead of quality. Now, if you had to have some brain surgery, would you go to the surgeon who did the best or the one who did it the fastest? I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what they're doing. And candidates who routinely say recruiters are terrible at getting back at them, which is true, but no recruiter came in the morning and said, let's have a candidate pissing off strategy day. We've really got to piss our candidates off. No recruiter wants to piss off. They just can't do it because they're so busy chasing all those job orders on the beach with the other little doggies. So they can't get this. Geez, I mixed some metaphors there, haven't I? So I think that automation, in-house talent teams, access to resumes is not the differentiator. Access to candidates that clients can't find themselves is. Now that takes search, networks, niche, specialization, and that's why I believe smart recruiters will move, even if they're not at executive search, they will move to exclusive retained, even at more junior levels. And so you should actually, ironically, be looking to handle less job orders, but fill a higher percentage of them. Having said that, I think a lot of people will be slow to make that shift and they will lose. So I think you've got to be proactive on this. So, and it's going to be counterintuitive. It's like, what's that crazy savage talking about? We don't even have enough jobs. And he's saying get less jobs. Well, if you're filling 1 out of 5, wouldn't it be better if you got 2
out of 3
and filled, instead of getting, how can I put it? If you're filling 2 jobs out of 10, wouldn't it be better if you only got 4 and filled 3?
Yeah.
That's the thinking.
What's one piece of uncomfortable advice most agency owners need to hear right now, in your opinion?
Lay it on him.
Lay it on him.
I would have thought I've said quite a few, but I think you've got to work on yourself as a project. You've got to run towards the technology. You've got to avoid complacency. And as I know I said earlier today, people get very upset when I call them complacent because they think I mean lazy. And it's not. There's no one lazy in recruitment. You can't last a week. Complacent means satisfied with the status quo, and that is your biggest danger. You've got to proactively slaughter some sacred cows. Not everything, not willy-nilly, but with thought. Some stuff that we've always done that we think is here forever has got to go, like accepting job orders in competition, and then reinventing ourselves as a specialized niche mini search firm, and then we can charge higher fees, and we can hold on. The other thing about contingent, because my prediction of it dying will take years, right? It'll slowly decline. People will make, and what's going to happen is that the cost of running a recruitment business is going to go up, but the fees are going to go down. Well, you know what that ends up in. That's what's going to happen unless you change.
For sure. Greg, look, thank you so much for joining us on the special episode of Confessions of a Recruiter today. It's been great having a bit of a chat with you and hearing you talk. For anyone that's, looking into or open to working with an offshore provider, feel free to get in touch with us today. Jory, Greg, thank you so
gentlemen.
much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Greg.